I don't think that there's a band in the world that would make me jump off the top of a monitor.
Mhm.
Like that jump is very high, and I might be just like too soft for it. When that video got released the other day, I was just like, why are they doing that? Like they're gonna get so hurt.
Hello, it's Cameron from these streets.
You don't want these Twizzlers, do you?
Nah, man, it's a Scoped Exposure podcast.
I think we're ready to go. If you are,
Yeah, I'm good.
hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. Very, very excited to be bringing on a vocalist of our hardcore generation, Bryan from Knocked Loose. Thanks for joining me on the show, my guy.
What's up? Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Of course, yeah, very excited that you were definitely one of those season 2 hit list guests that I had in mind. And I've been telling some friends of mine behind the scenes on the podcast, it's like at this point I'm just doing Knock Loose podcast guest bingo, because we've had Paxson on, we've had Isaac, and now you're the third of 5.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, that was really cool. I was actually like, I'm very stoked to do it, but I was stoked that you got Paxson on here because I don't know. I could probably count on one hand how many interviews he's done since he's been in the band, and not even because he doesn't like doing them, but just because he doesn't get asked often. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Like I'm realizing that there are that very traditional like interview person in the band who maybe is used to doing the press for some of those things. But I think like every person in every band could be a podcast of their own. They all have their individual, interests and, things like that. So yeah, like, and him starting his candle company, a huge goal of mine with this podcast is to have the crossover between heavy music and all the other things that people are into. So yeah. It's I got 2 down if this one goes well.
Yeah, very cool.
For like the one person who's clicked on this super randomly and has no idea who you are, can you give me a proper intro of what you do in Knocked Loose, and how you're known in heavy music and what else you do?
My name is Bryan Garris. I sing in a band called Knocked Loose. We've been a band since 2013. We've been touring since 2014, and we're from Oldham County, Kentucky, which is right out of Louisville. Because I know that that's the next question.
Where the fuck
Oldham
is that?
County?
Yeah.
And I mean, we're a heavy band. That's the way that I like to sum it up. I think that's the easiest way to sum it up without irritating random people that might be listening.
Yeah, I would say like probably 99% of the people who've clicked on it are just excited that we're, doing this. But there's always one person who's like, oh, this podcast, I'll click on it, and they have no idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Coles Notes version of that is definitely appreciated for that one person. Well, Bryan, I'm really excited to be talking to you. Like there's a few things in the Knocked Loose lore that I definitely want to pull the curtain back and talk about some different things. I feel like this podcast is really timely with how the LDB 2020 set from 197 dropped just a few days ago. So I'll definitely be wanting to chat about that. But before we get super into it, we got to check some bevs. You were mentioned, I don't know if I'll include it, but you were running down to the convenience store just before we started to get going to be prepared for that. So tell the folks at home what you're drinking.
So I don't know if this is allowed, but I have 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, always allowed.
When I go to the gas station or to the convenience store, I almost always grab 2 drinks.
Okay.
I'm like a big beverage person. Like I'm always drinking something. So I got Blueberry Redbull, which is my favorite flavor. And then I got a water.
Oh, okay. That's a crazy looking bottle.
The Fiji.
Oh, it's Fiji. You
Square
showed the
bottom.
back. For some reason, it looked like hand sanitizer. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
But yeah, I feel like I mean you have to have water, and then also water can just like it will actually hydrate you. Versus this is like not good for me.
Yeah, it's the balancing of the scales for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is
I'm actually gonna crack this open. I haven't opened it yet. So
why is blueberry your favorite one?
I think that I personally think that it tastes the best. My favorite was coconut.
Oh, okay.
And then when we released our album, we were like making jokes out of everything that's blue. For those that still don't know who I am, our album is called A Different Shade of Blue. So the week that it came out, we did a small run of like really small, intimate shows. And we were somebody tagged us in a picture where they got their nails painted blue for the release. And we were like, wow, that's awesome. So like, we just started like exaggerating the gimmick within our van. So it was like,
sure,
everybody get the Blueberry Redbull. Everybody, like, I think
we're the blue band right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so sure. Like we all got our nails done. And I had it and I was like, man, this is awesome. And then literally ever since then, it's been like my go-to Red Bull flavor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely up there on different things. I think if I'm getting a flavored Red Bull, watermelon is still a go-to for me. And maybe it's because it's a seasonal one. So I'm like, I have to drink this while I can.
Yeah.
But
it is good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm really excited. I'm not sure how familiar you are with, I guess, like my goals of this podcast, but like Bev sponsors was like an absolute must for season 2. So by the time this episode comes out, the draw, it will be announced that New Level, which is a brewery here in Calgary, is a sponsor of ours. And because you're straight edge, I like to respect the straight edge in the podcast room. So they actually do a craft soda. So it's called Pineapple Punch. I've had this on a couple other ones that I've done in the last few weeks, and it's like really good, really good, which I have to crack mine as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. Congrats is that your first beverage sponsor?
Yeah, they'll be the first one announced. I have another announcement coming down the pipe, and I got the box of all the bevs today, and I'm just like, this is real. Like, kind of like, it's cool to kind of work through some of those things. But we
actually got, I think like one time we put Red Bull on our rider. Mm-hmm. And our manager reached out and was like, I can just get you, I don't know if I would consider it a sponsorship, but it's basically just like at our request, we can get it. And we don't normally like,
you can have a Red Bull guy.
Yeah. And we don't like normally fully take advantage of that because like one time we were like, yeah, let's do it. Like send us some. And they sent us a box that was like as big as a like guitar cab, and it was filled with every flavor that existed at the time. Mm-hmm. And like within the first night we were like, this is dangerous, and we started like handing it out to just like people that we were on tour with, so that I was like, if we keep this we will drink it and we'll probably die. So we just were like sharing the wealth, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the goal with some of these ones is that, obviously there's multiple members on the scope team. So I'm kind of sharing the load. Every Bev sponsor that I've locked in so far has different, we'll send you this much, blah, blah, blah. But I'm honestly going to just be giving some to friends to be like, hey, like I'm going to give you one so you can go use the coupon code and then it'll just start the Bev cycle eventually. But, obviously it's a goal of mine, but I wouldn't be reaching out and getting sponsored by Bev companies that I didn't like. Like I wanted to make sure it's like, I want to be, drinking good stuff on every episode of this podcast. So
for sure.
Yeah. So cheers to you, my guy. Super stoked to be doing this. I guess it's like I'm trying to keep talking so there's not dead air, but I do have to take a sip here because we need cheers.
No, it's fine.
So Bryan, any new guests of the podcast here? I always ask the same kind of intro question. Tell me how you got into heavy music. Kind of give me the origin story of like the first breakdown you heard, the first time you heard screaming, because I'm a firm believer that context really matters to kind of be like, Bryan's in this crazy band, but like showing that it's, very similar for a lot of people on,
Yeah.
some of those things. So break it down for me.
I will say that I grew up in a very, very musical household. And then beyond that, like musical family. I think that there's like branches on both sides that were very involved in music or passionate in music.
Okay.
My grandfather on my mom's side played bass for like over 60 years, and he like toured and he toured abroad. Like he was like a huge driving influence in my love for music early on. My uncle on my dad's side was like a drummer for like hair metal bands. Nothing big, but my grandma on my dad's side was a country singer. Like it was everywhere. And then within my household, like my mom and my dad both are just very, very passionate about music. There's like music playing more often than there is TV growing up.
Sure.
Like they would have the windows open and they'd just be blaring music, like cleaning or just sitting on the couch hanging out. But the music is just like so loud. And that was typically like hip hop music and some country from like my dad. But like the biggest one that they all had in common was like hip hop. So I grew up mainly loving hip hop until I was like probably in like 7th grade, I would say. I was like really into skateboarding, which I think kind of introduced me to like just through like playing video games, hearing other styles of music.
Right.
And then I actually went and spent a summer with my aunt, and my aunt was like a metalhead, and she introduced me to like all of your like basic like Korn, System of a Down, Slipknot, stuff like that, which I guess would be the very first time that I became like really interested in heavy music. But I didn't really start to understand, I guess, when I came home from that trip and I started just trying to take in anything heavy that I could. There were things like Headbangers Ball on TV, and even MTV still played like metal bands and metalcore bands. And
for sure.
So I would watch that, and that was a big way for me to kind of like dive in on my own and find things that I liked more. So I kind of like used Korn and like System of a Down and a lot of the really big nu metal bands to kind of like get me through the door. But then I started finding things like Under Oath and Hatebreed and like things that were really big and on TV at the time. I would literally watch. We had dial-up internet.
Okay.
And for anybody that's like too young to know what that is, we like couldn't use our phone while the internet was going. It took forever. So like I couldn't just like roam the internet for music. So I would watch Headbangers Ball with a notebook, and every song that I liked, I would write it down, and then I would like spend the next like week trying to download it from like iTunes or whatever.
For sure. Or Napster, or one of those places. Yeah.
Yeah. And from there, I just fully became in love with it from like every angle. Like, I know that like people nowadays care a lot about like what specific bubble it fits in when it comes to like genre or subgenre. But when I was younger, it's like crazy to look back at the bands that I was listening to, like my first year into heavy music, and how every single one of them would fit into a different bubble. But back then it was just like, I just need it all. I need like anything heavy. I was like fully about.
Yeah, that is very like, I think it's with a lot of people is like, if whether you had a super musical household or you just like maybe went to band class and things like that, as soon as you hear like something that is so foreign to you when it comes to heavy music, like I think one of the first times that I remember hearing something in that sphere a friend from school was showing me one of the very first Under Oath music videos, and I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, people
Yeah.
are screaming and like people are throwing guitars around, but like it's almost one of those things where it's like a flight or fight response. You're just like, I
Yeah.
don't understand this, but I need to learn more about it. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing when you're like, I don't know, like there's so many, like I have my GameCube rig over there. You can't really see it in the frame, but like a lot of these games soundtracks were just like, this one song comes on and then it's like, okay, it's time to land this, 10,000 combo on Tony Hawk, or like
Yeah.
win the NHL game or whatever. So, it's really cool on how, like, and maybe that hasn't really, I haven't, maybe I'm a little ignorant to this, but I haven't really seen a lot of that in recent, like video game or just like that pop culture aspect. Like, you're not hearing like a Knocked Loose song on the newest Call of Duty game. But maybe that's just because like new metal had this like big boom, and now like it's not the most popular like genre of music. But yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that there was like so many people were trying to like cash in on that when it became popular, that
Mhm.
like major labels were like trying to pick up the next Corn or whatever it may
For
be, and
sure.
like
Yeah.
that led it to just being kind of like snuck into pop culture everywhere. And it's weird because I would say that now you see bands um, getting a lot more mainstream opportunities than at least I'm used to. But it's still like so far from like what it used to be. Like, I was even talking to members of Every Time I Die, because we've gotten to tour with them a bunch,
Yeah.
and they've been a band for almost 20 years. So talking to them, and they're like, yeah, I mean, we were on TV. Like, we were on
Right.
TV
Right.
all the time.
Right.
And it was like when we released a new song, it's like, oh, tomorrow we're going to be on MTV with our new music video. And it's like, that's so foreign to me, even though like I watched it when I was younger, but just like when I started playing music, that was just like no longer like an option. But it's like crazy to think that like um, 10 years ago, like Knocked Loose would probably be on TV.
Yeah, like this is SNL and this is Knocked Loose, and then you guys are
Yeah.
ripping into pop culture or something.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
be insane.
That would be sick.
Yeah, but no, I think you hit on a great point there. Like, I think there's just been a shift, and I don't know. Like, I'm sure none of the big, hardcore like players in the game right now aren't like trying to be on SNL or like be on TV. Like, there's a lot of, maybe there's been a shift of priorities or just like goals and milestones that they want to hit. But like, if SNL was hitting you guys up, I'm sure that would be something that would, I don't know if you guys would go down that rabbit hole with them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would. I think a lot of the people, I think a lot of bands would, or like even like probably try, because I know that there's been times in the past where like I think the guy that runs the NHL Instagram is like a hardcore
Oh
dude.
yes, I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like one time he was through the NHL page, like posted Knocked Loose lyrics. And then EA Sports commented on it with like, they said like Knocked Loose with a fire emoji. And I was like, I like picked up the phone and like tried to call our manager immediately and was like, yo, like, do I DM them? Like, how do we go about like
what happens next?
Yeah, like they know who we are, so like let's do what we got to do. And like he was like, dude, I saw it, I'm already like trying to figure out like an email. But like, so I don't doubt that that happened, that like other bands don't like seek out these opportunities as well. I just don't know how much like they bite, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, there's probably a number of people in those super like in those worlds that you wouldn't even expect someone to be listening to hardcore, that they would listen to Knocked Loose or like even Drain or, you know, one of those kind of like bigger notable bands. But,
Yeah.
you know, you probably wouldn't see like, hey, this is Tsunami playing the Super Bowl. And like, you would just see all these like really confused faces.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's
But it's fun. It's sorry, I didn't mean to cut
no,
you off.
you're good. Yeah.
But even to like add to that, it's like I love being like playing to the confused face. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like feeling like I have like evoked like the emotion of like just pure shock and like is like always been really exciting to me. It's been a huge like driving force in why Knocked Loose has like always wanted to do different kind of touring, because then we get to do things like we toured with A Day to Remember, and like people think like, oh, like they have breakdowns, like it makes sense, but it's like their fan base is there for that one acoustic song, and it's like
it's true.
and they're so big. It's like the biggest US tour we've ever done, and their photographer during our set would take pictures of the barricade every night, because there were like, have you seen that picture? I think it's Title Fight at Coachella, and people are stage diving on all the Coachella people, and they're all like so bummed.
No, but I have to go look at that as soon
Yeah,
as
that's exactly what it looked like.
Right.
Us playing to like A Day to Remember fans. And granted, the tour was amazing, but every night there was just like a handful of people that just like was not there for us and had never even looked us up, and they were just in shock at the way that we sounded.
No, that's so funny. But like I think it's one of those things where you either hear it and you're like, I need to know more about this, and you go down the rabbit hole and you discover this huge, beautiful thing that is hardcore, or you're just like, that makes no sense. I am gonna go listen to It Means a Lot to You by A Day to Remember on repeat.
Yeah.
I love A Day to Remember, don't get me wrong, but they're at that level where it's like their fan base is like, I heard this song on the radio, to like I remember like or like I like the Kelly Clarkson song cover or something like that. Well, you know, you brought up the idea of, you know, playing to confused faces, and maybe that's a nice transition. You know, when I did the podcast with Isaac, he kind of told a lot of the origin of a lot of the bands. So instead of having you regurgitate that, ultimately, tell me about just like maybe just the uphill climb that was Knocked Loose, because now you guys are a very like highly respected band. You know, like I know tons of people who might not like be into the music as much, but they're like, I got a respect for what they've done for heavy music. So like in the beginning years, obviously like that respect like probably wasn't there, as far as just like, who is this band who's in drop A playing these hardcore shows? Tell me about like some of the early I guess moments for you, being like, I'm just trying to play music with my friends and not even like really change the game ultimately, but you know, that ended up happening down the road. So where's your mind go with that?
Yeah, I would say that where we're from in Louisville, Kentucky is like really small, and the people that booked like hardcore shows in Louisville knew that like they wanted it to be bigger. They wanted more people coming, so they started to book mixed bill shows. So growing up, I would go to, like, it was just a very inclusive scene, and you would meet older people that immediately were like welcoming, and they were talking to you about your shirt and giving you bands that sounded like the shirt you were wearing. And they would book these shows that's like all kinds of different bands on one show. You would have pop punk bands playing hardcore shows, you would have metal bands playing hardcore shows, everything. And it still had the like atmosphere and like morals of a hardcore show.
Sure.
And because I know that like, and there's a lot of clash sometimes between like metal heads and like hardcore kids. This was all under the like ideology of like hardcore shows.
Sure.
So floor, no barricade, everybody's welcome, like whatever. And I think that just that was what we were used to. So when it came to touring and when touring became a possibility for us, we were so excited to be on the road, that we wanted to get out there. It didn't matter who we were with. I mean, as long as we liked them, as long as we felt like we believed in the same things, whatever, like could become friends with these people. We just wanted to be out there as much as possible. So we kind of took that same mentality of like, a show is a show. Like it's not going to change what we sound like. Maybe we're the oddball, so be it. That's just kind of like where we came from. So we got our own van. Well, like the first tour that we did, we shared a van with another band. And I still wasn't sure personally if touring was the path that I wanted to go down. I was in college at the time, and I was like, I definitely want to do this because it's summer and it would be fun. And when I did it, I was like, this is nuts. Like, I have to do this again.
Right.
So we got our own van and like literally just hit the ground running, and we were on tour so much. And it was like, we would be on tour, and there were days when I would be like, hey, if you like us, there's a flyer over there on the wall. We'll be back in 2 weeks on another tour. Like, please come back out and see us.
Right.
And this was before like an agent, a manager, a label, anything. It was just us wanting to be out there. And we did it a lot. I think the first year that we had our own van, we did like 8 or 9 different tours. And we were gone probably 10 months out of that year. Like, it was just, and it was like van breaking down, sleeping in the van, sleeping like in sleeping bags on the ground in parking lots. Like, it was just, we were making no money. There were days when there's like so many stories like this. The one that I'll tell specifically, because it's really funny. We had a show in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And we pulled up to the show to load in, and there's a kid out front, and he's like, hey, the promoter canceled the show because he didn't think that people would come.
Oh no.
And we were like, okay, like that had happened to us before.
Sure.
So we were like, okay, I guess we're just gonna keep driving. And they were like, please don't leave the city. I'm trying to find somewhere else for you to play. So we were like, oh, okay. So we just like went swimming, and then we got a message on the band's Facebook that was like, I found a place. And we were like, all right. So we went, and I think we played at like 1 a.m. on the roof of some bar. Like, he just found this like bar that would let us play. So I mean, stuff like that happened a lot, but it was just like, it was so much fun. Everything was brand new.
Right.
And it just slowly got bigger and bigger. Like, we would play places and we would start to notice, like, I think for me personally, I would say Chicago is a place that I really started to see get better and better every single time that we went.
Sure.
And then doing that for a while, we got hit up by Pure Noise. And then it was just like, we never said no to anything.
Yeah.
It was like, we would get hit up. Do you want to do this? Yeah. Do you want to do this? Yeah. And it just got bigger every single time, to the point where we started to have the conversation of bringing other people on board. At this point, we had a booking agent, but then it was like, well, you probably need a team. Because I remember, like, we didn't have a manager for a really, really long time. And we were like, we want to do it ourselves. Like, we don't want to pay somebody else to, like, book a hotel. Like,
sure.
Like, we can do that. And we were very naive, because that's not what a manager does. We just,
for sure.
Things were just, like, constantly go, and they were going fine. So we were like, we can do this. Like, and then, I mean, like, our drummer Paxson calling Pure Noise Records at like midnight and being like, how do I book flights to Europe? Like, and and he's like, it's gonna be like $1,500 a person to go to Europe, and the guys in Pure Noise being like, no, it's not. Like, you're doing it wrong. Like,
Right.
and that's when they were kind of just like, you need a manager. Like, labels don't really do that. They just really, really helped us early on. And then, yeah, like I said, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then I guess here we are.
Yeah. And yeah, it's funny because as I was kind of watching you guys kind of become this behemoth sized band, like there's two bands, you guys being one of them, were like these bands that I would look up, and they would be like playing these ridiculously ridiculous show settings where it's like a community center and it's like the room is way bigger than the show attendance, but people are still going off. I remember watching so many ones of you guys and Kublai Khan, just like in different parts throughout the States. So it was like crazy. It was like, oh yeah, okay, Pure Noise. And then like all the different milestones has been like really cool to see, and really cool to see on like, kind of pushing this heavier side of like hardcore into the mix of like what popular hardcore is nowadays. One thing I wanted to ask you on is, in the process of like maybe seeing some like early live videos, I think as you guys were growing, I started to see you specifically do guest vocal spots on a number of different features. A few that come to mind would be like Gideon's Cursed, Varial's Empire of Dirt, Left Behind Snakes. So was that like, were these bands just hitting you up specifically being like, yo, your voice is like such a breath of fresh air as far as not being this like super low and guttural thing, and we want to bring you on? Or were you hitting these bands up to try and promote the band in that way?
Well, it was really just like friends. There's not a lot of, like, even thinking about it now, I don't think that I've done a lot for a band that I'm not friends with.
Sure.
Like, Left Behind played our very first show ever.
Okay.
They then booked us in West Virginia, where they're from, and it was our very first out of town show.
Wow.
They played the release show for Pop Culture, the release show for our split. Like, we were very, very close to Left Behind in the early years. So, and we're still close with them, but they just hit me up like as a friend. And then Varials, like, we played with them like before they had ever toured, and we really liked them, and we were like, hey, if you buy a van, we'll take you on tour. So like we immediately like started building a relationship with them, and then we had toured with Gideon. So like a lot of it is just like friends hitting me up. And I think that like I obviously don't regret doing any, but I did so much that I was like, I have to pump the brakes.
Right.
And now I'm like, as my friend, you should understand why I would say no.
Sure.
Like I would love to be a part of your record, but I just have to chill, because it's just like, it's not cool anymore.
Right.
That I'm on every new record. There was like a year where I was just like on it, like every new record that I'm friends with.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, time to take a break.
Yeah. And yeah, I definitely did notice that. And it felt like a lot of the maybe more recent features that I've seen you on, you've like relished in that a little bit more. Like the Malevolence one, like you were in the music video and like did it live a few times for that. So I think that's very cool.
That was really funny, because I love the Malevolence guys, and that was a situation where like first time we ever went to the UK, they rolled out, and that was when like I mean, I still get excited. A big rule for me is like if I ever stop getting excited, then I need to quit. Like if I stop getting excited about the people that I get to meet, the people that I get to interact with, and the bands that I get to tour with, like I have no business doing this. So like, but then it was our first time ever in the UK. I was so like giddy and excited Malevolence comes out, and I'm like, that's that scary band from the internet. And they approach us, and they're like, yo, we love your band. Alex asked if he could do a part with us that night at the show. And we were like, yo, like this band's sick and they like us, like just so excited. So like we built a friendship with them. They asked me to do the song. I said yes. We then planned that tour together where we did UK and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
On the tour, we had a photographer, and they were like, if we pay you, will you do a video for us? And he was like, yeah, of course. So they were like, yo, you could be in the video. And I was like, okay, but is it going to be like a Malevolence video? Because if you are familiar with Malevolence,
Right.
like their videos have a very specific vibe. It looks like a Scarface movie. Like, and I was just like, we played a slaughterhouse in Sweden that it's like no longer a slaughterhouse.
Oh,
but it
past
was
slaughterhouse.
Yeah,
it's not like the slaughtering is done for the day. Now the bands can play.
Yeah, no, not that. So they do like hardcore shows in there now, and in the back room, like behind the like weird plastic like curtains that you have to walk through, like it still very much looked like a slaughterhouse. They were like, perfect for the video, like you should do your part here. And I was like, do you want me to do the Malevolence thing? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, dude, no, like that's just like, it's not me. And they were like, just try it. And they're like, if you hate it, like we won't use it. And we did it, and we were all like laughing so hard in between takes, because like you just have to act like you're the coolest person in the world.
Right.
And I remember our video guy like edited it, and he showed it to me, and I was like, that's the coolest I've probably ever looked.
Yeah, just Malevolence like, bringing the cool factor through the roof.
So I was like, all right, you can keep it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some Malevolence cool guy vibes on that video. All those new songs that they did are really, really good. Since we're on the topic of guest vocals, you did a tradesies with Emma of Dying Wish. She was on your record. So like, again, was that like, I guess your initial idea, or was there like you guys played a show together and the conversation started? And I only asked because Dying Wish is one of those bands that kind of came through Calgary, even before they were called Dying Wish, and have just grown as a band kind of in a very similar vein as you guys, just in a different part of the world. So what's the behind the scenes of that one?
Well, I feel like I had heard of the band maybe on Twitter or something, but I didn't really pay attention. And we, Emma like booked shows, and she booked us, and me and Isaac specifically, like the whole band cares, but me and Isaac specifically, when it comes to touring, we like to be very hands-on with our headliners, because it's like, if you can hear that siren in the background, I'm really sorry.
No, it's everyone driving in their car who's like looking over their shoulder right now.
So that was our first headliner ever, and it was the one with like Terror, Jesus Piece Here, The Knife, and like me, like we all picked those bands. But then when we got the routing, it was to the point where it was like, me and Isaac were like, well, we should do this instead of this, and in this city we should play this venue, and in this city we should play this venue, to kind of just like keep it the kind of show that we want.
Have more control in every
and then we went through and we gave a list of local bands that we wanted to play these shows, and in Portland we didn't really have one, so I asked I think I asked Year of the Knife, and Maddie told me like Dying Wish should play. So we put them on the show, and then I really liked their set, so I kind of started to follow it a little bit more. But then they released that split, and
Laceration.
Yeah, and that's when I was just like, this is sick. I really like this. And when we were doing the record, I knew that I wanted 2 spots. So with laugh tracks, we had somebody from a big band and somebody from a smaller band. We had Brendan from Counterparts, and we had my brother. who was in a band at the time, but he isn't anymore. So I was like, let's keep that same theme and let's have somebody from a big band, Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die, and somebody from a smaller band that we all fuck with. So we got Emma. So I hit her up and she immediately was like, yeah, of course. And then several months later, she was like, hey, do you want to like return the favor and be on our song? And I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, I always love to hear those collaborations, but then to see them manifest in real life. Cause I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the first time that you guys got to rock that song together was Chain Reaction. I saw a video that 197 did.
That was actually the second time.
Oh, okay.
Because we did, when we released the album, we did a headliner again.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
when we played Portland, we had Dying Wish play, and I got to do it. But I will say that the Chain Reaction show felt better. Like
Sure.
I was much more comfortable with the song at that point. The energy in the room was just a lot better. The song had been out long enough for people to know kind of what to expect. And also something that was really cool was I was in California staying with my friend Pat. So like Knocked Loose didn't play that show and nobody knew that I was there.
Okay.
Like if you've been to Chain, to get to like the band room, you have to go like all the way around the back of the room.
Uh-huh.
And then you can walk right on the stage. So like,
oh, I see. So you kind of just snuck in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, it was like truly like the band knew that I was there, obviously. But like the crowd didn't expect it at all.
Yeah. That's so cool.
And yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. I love those like just, you know, little surprises at a live show. Like someone's just there and you're like, I know this person, this huge band, and they are from so far away from here. So that's very cool.
I think about like when I was a kid and you would see that.
Oh,
like when
straight up. Yeah.
When you're going to shows and you see somebody else come out with a band, it was always like a huge talking point for that show.
Yeah.
And I think that I've always really, really liked guest vocals in general because of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you like go to a Knocked Loose show, like chances are you'll see somebody from my band sing for another band, and vice
probably
versa.
Isaac, because he's just trying to do as many as he can.
Yeah, it's always just like, yo, let me do a part. When we were on Warped Tour, we had so many friends that it was just like we're bouncing around, just like singing with our friends, and like, it's fun, and I think that it's like from like a show goer's perspective, it's always like exciting for that to like, it's so unexpected.
Yeah. And it's such a empowering thing too, to be like, even if it's not a hype person in the band, like you look at a band like Terror, Scott's just like one person grabs the mic, he's like, you do this part. So it's like, you know, if that's your first show, or you're just like going to shows and you're not in a band, and you see your friend who also isn't in a band, but they did, you know, the last big chorus of this Terror song, that's like, oh wow, like I can be in a band like Terror, or I can do that. So
yeah, absolutely.
I did want to, sorry, you go.
When I remember like the first, you said you're from Calgary.
I live in Calgary. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Okay. So yeah.
The first time that we were ever in that part of Canada, I just remember like the band that we were with, like being introduced. They had so many friends from like Calgary, and they were just like, yo, like we just met so many people. And I just remember that night, their set was like karaoke. Like every song was like somebody was like the show was nuts. And everybody was just getting a part in. I thought that it was so cool. Yeah. It's like a very like, that's a memory that I've always had when it comes to like Calgary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I am certain that, you know, Wild Rose 2020 would have been just like Knocked Loose karaoke time. And if you guys, you know, granted that, you know, that lineup can happen in you know, a year's time or what have you, like it's hard to say ideas because it feels like everything gets pushed back, but yeah, we'll make sure that when you guys come through, it's Knocked Loose karaoke in Calgary.
I was so excited that finally like lined up, because there's so many like like I said, we have a really hard time saying no to things. So we're usually like so busy, and it was like, it's always like you'll do something and then it's sick. Like I never want to take it for granted, but then something that's like you really want to do will get put on your table, and you're like, we're already committed.
Yeah, right.
So that finally worked out, and we were like so excited for it, and then the world said no.
Right. The world said no. Hopefully it says yes soon. I had one final question on just the whole guest vocal spot. A friend of mine, I won't say his name in case he's like totally out to lunches and this is incorrect. In the Left Behind Snakes music video, he told me that that's not you in the video. Is that incorrect or is that right?
It's true. Yeah. It's
okay.
That's my little brother.
Right.
Yeah, we were on tour and they came through Louisville, and the guy that shot that video, I think it was Eric Easterday, but
I think it was. It's got Eric vibes all over it, so that would
make
sense. Yeah,
he was either still in Indianapolis, which is close, or he was in Louisville at that point. So he came and shot the video, and I think Zach from Left Behind like texted me and was like, "Yo, we're making your brother do your part for the video because you all look enough alike."
Right? Yeah, he just put the hoodie up. Yeah, because he told me that, and I kept rewatching it. I was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "I'm getting on a big podcast with Bryan, so I hope that's not incorrect." So that's really funny.
No, that is true. I actually forgot about that, and I've never been asked that. So
right, I have to shout out a YouTube comment on that video because I guess right when he goes to grab the mic, there's someone else that is also trying to grab the mic, and then he's like, "No, we're here for the video."
That's Adam from Orthodox.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was Left Behind and Orthodox were on tour, and I guess that Adam was doing that part every night.
Oh.
So he just thought like, oh, it's just a regular night. I'll go do the part, and then Dallas comes through and like, no pun intended, but like snakes the mic from him.
That's so funny because like it must be a young Adam, like just so many facial differences because I didn't recognize him, but he was definitely like, whoop, oh, okay, it's not my time. That's too funny. So you were bringing up different milestones that you guys have had over the years with the band, and saying yes has just created the snowball to keep growing. A question I had was like, once we actually get back to playing shows, what is like a milestone that you want to hit when you guys can kind of get back in the regular swing of things?
That's really interesting because I don't know how much I've thought about that. I feel like I personally have always kind of set like small goals for myself. Like even in the beginning, it was like when we started this band, I was like, I would love to be able to hold a piece of music that I've made.
Sure.
Like just make a CD, but like a legit CD with like artwork and everything. And it's always just been the next step.
Sure.
Like I would love to tour. I would love to get signed. I would love to headline, et cetera, et cetera. My last small goal for Knocked Loose was I would love to sell out the Chicago House of Blues.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, Chicago is one of the first places where I really started to notice people were really liking us. It's also like the Midwest, which is like not the easiest place to draw a lot of people.
Sure.
And it's a place that has just gotten better and better for us. It's literally never gotten worse. So we played House of Blues opening up for Beartooth, and I got off stage and I said to my band, as soon as we got off stage, I want to headline this room. So the last day of our headliner for A Different Shade of Blue was at Chicago House of Blues, and it sold out. And it was like huge, huge moment for the whole band, but for me personally.
Yeah.
And we went all out. It was the most production that we had ever done. We had like CO2 smoke, and like we every time we get, this is funny because every time we get like new ideas for the band, we're like, we're gonna do this, but we don't know how we're gonna do it yet. So I was like we're like approaching the conversation of production, and it's like, how do we do production like Knocked Loose would do it, to where it elevates the show without making it corny or gimmicky?
Yeah.
So it's like we do smoke, we do confetti cannons. We had like a backdrop change, like during a part in our set, our backdrop falls and there's another one behind it.
Oh,
But
okay.
The big finale was I was like, I want to do a balloon drop. I want to drop 1,000 balloons from the ceiling during our biggest song. So I bought 2 nets, and we personally blew up 1,000 balloons with our mouth.
Dude.
Yeah, because it's like I mean, it was probably less because they break over time, and then but we were like hitting up friends like, yo, get to the show as early as possible because we need your help. Like
we need you to blow up some balloons.
Yeah, and it's funny, but that's like how it's always been. Like,
sure.
Our merch girl, we did that tour with Terror, and we were like, we went to Guitar Center and we bought a bunch of cheap lights, and she was like, oh, who's doing your lights? And we were like, you. So like, and then over the years, that's grown to like when we did that that headliner for A Different Shade of Blue. She had learned how to do everything. She rented an entire light rig that we had to build every day. These like 2 8-foot tall trusses that had moving lights on them. And like day one of that tour, we're like looking at all this stuff like, what is this? It's like we always do that. So same thing with the balloons. And but I mean, we did it and it looked very, very cool. It was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
But it's like, now next time we have this balloon conversation, we'll know that we need to figure out how they're going to get blown up.
Yeah, because like even just if I'm trying to be like, you know, a stand-up husband and do something at the house and I'm like blowing up balloons, even if I'm doing like 20 or 50, I'm like just done for the day after.
Yeah. This was hours of like almost every person on the tour package plus friends.
Right.
Just like blowing up balloons constantly throughout the night. And it worked out really well. But going back to your original question,
sure,
it's always been like small goals. So when everything shut down, I don't know if I had fully like the headliner had really like settled, because it was the biggest thing that we've ever done, and it was the hardest that we've ever worked on anything.
Sure.
And it was so fast that I feel like I didn't get a chance while we were doing it to be like, holy hell, this is going so great. So I don't know if I had necessarily thought about what's next. I know that like the band has thought about what's next, and I think that we want to do like, I think a realistic small goal next would be like a big metal tour. I want to do like Lamb of God, Slipknot, something like that, something along those lines. That was like a direction that we had talked about as a band, like a world that we've never really dipped our toes in.
Yeah.
And it just seems like the next logical step. So to sum up that extremely long story, I'll just say like, I want to do like a big metal tour.
Sure. Like doing a tour with a band that like got you into heavy music. I'm sure that would be surreal on so many levels for anyone if they got the chance to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Yeah, I think it's it is cool just to see like all the things just, you know, snowball into one another and not really overthinking like, oh, it's got to be, we have to do this eventually. Like, I think everyone's got their personal little things that they're like, I would love my band to play here for, you know, a specific reason. But it's cool to hear how, you know, you saw Chicago as this thing that was growing, and then you got to headline that show and drop a ton of balloons on everyone.
I think that it's important to like I don't think there's anything wrong with having like an ultimate goal. But I do think that it's important um, to focus on the steps to get there. I think that a lot of people, you started to see bands touring less and less, and it's like people are like afraid to play bad shows. And I think that that's really, really necessary to play bad shows. Like,
Okay.
Because it makes you appreciate the good ones better. But then also like a lot, like being from where I'm from, and even like being from Winnipeg, like I'm sure that you can relate to this, but like you don't get all the shows. Like
No,
you don't get a
damn
lot
right.
of shows. So when we started touring, it was really important for us to like, we're not going to fly to California and start our tour there or like in New York. Like we're going to play Memphis, Tennessee to nobody. And then the next time we come back to Memphis, Tennessee, there's going to be a little bit more than nobody. And like, I'm not just throwing Memphis under the bus because we have a lot of friends there, and it's a place that has grown over time. But it was always important for us to be like, yeah, I want to headline the big shows in California, but like, I want to be able to play anywhere and it not suck. Because I enjoy touring.
Yeah.
I don't just enjoy playing good shows. Like I enjoy being on the road. I enjoy being with my band, and like the small shows that's nobody. Like there's shows that we've played to nobody, and the few people that are there still come to Knocked Loose shows, and it's like now we're just friends. Like there's no way I can see you coming to a show for 7 years and not be like, yo, what's up? Like,
right. Yeah. You were there with me in the community hall with 7 other people. Like,
yeah,
that
exactly.
shit goes deep for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, maybe this is a great transition. I know you ride hard for Kentucky, and, I was watching the LDB 2020 set, and you said something in between a song. You're like, I've seen so many people on Twitter just be like, I can't believe I'm going to Kentucky. And I think I have always, and maybe it's because I grew up in Winnipeg or just Western Canada in general, about always being this like underdog kind of like region when it comes to just heavy music, because, people that, you live in like California now. So you have seen just like, just well, maybe not just like because you moved during COVID, but naturally, like California has it very, very good when it comes to like hardcore or metal music, things like that.
Yeah.
Like you could build the legacy of your band just within that state. But when you look at places in the Midwest or, other places around the world that don't have that luxury, there's more time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears that are soaked into the soils of your scene to like actually grow it into something. And 2-3 years isn't a long time ago, but I remember like when LDB Fest wasn't even at the skate park, and it wasn't being documented by 197, and it was still a regional fest that people would go to, but the scale that it ended on before the world shut down is crazy to see that growth. So being a Kentucky like local, like how does that go through your mind of like, yeah, like we built this?
Yeah. I think that like Alex and Ryan, who book LDB Fest, and I think that they like, I'm sure it's like this for like any small time promoter. Like they care so much, and being from Kentucky or being from Winnipeg or anywhere that's like smaller is like what you kind of learn is like you have to care as much, or it just won't survive.
Sure.
So it's like you doing this podcast brings attention to your hardcore scene, and like the promoters in your hardcore scene. Sorry, I have like an alleyway that's like directly out of this window, and a motorcycle
I see.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm hearing police sirens and it sounded like a garbage truck. I'm like, what's going on?
But Alex and Ryan, like they've worked so hard, like booking shows throughout the year and building these connections that when they started doing the fest, it was always really exciting for us. And I got to watch it grow. And I remember when it first started, I was just like, I want to play that so bad. Like,
Right.
I won't ask because I don't want to be like a punisher, but like, I'm just letting them know, like, I would play this in a heartbeat if you ever asked me. So like, it was always so cool to us, and to see it grow into what it is. It makes me like, I'm very proud to be from Kentucky, especially when it comes to our hardcore scene, because I know how hard everybody involved works on it, to make sure that it exists.
Sure.
How everybody chips in, to keep it afloat. But more so, it makes me so proud to be from Kentucky, because now it's like, the videos that I grew up watching are happening where I'm from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would see the tweets, and like I don't blame those people for tweeting those things,
Sure.
because like I get it. Like, you don't think that you're going to be like taking vacation time off of work to go to Kentucky. Like, it's just not. I saw a lot of comments today because we announced that we are playing Furnace Fest in Alabama, if it actually happens. But yeah, and people are just like, if the first show I go to after all of this is in Alabama, and I'm like, okay, I get it. But it feels awesome. Like, even just as like I don't book LDB or anything. I'm always there to help when they need me. But just as like a fan of the music and my local scene, like it just feels so awesome to be like for it to be cool. You know what I mean?
Right.
For people to take it serious. That's the best way to put it. And what happens then is you get the interest of bands that would normally say no.
Right.
And that just helps the fest grow. And it did. We've played it a lot, to the point where I was like, maybe we shouldn't, like, but we always like, if we can help it, we're home.
Right.
Like, if we have a tour, we're like, can we like move it? There, like, even that year, we got home from Southeast Asia the day of the pre-show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was like,
so you're like jet lagged, like the first day of the show. Interesting.
Yeah, but we like weren't booked on it or anything, but it was just like so much fun, and it's just like the atmosphere is so great, and we were all just jacked up, and we were like in the group chat like, I wish we could play. So I just like approached Ryan and was like, yo, tomorrow can we do a surprise set? And he was just like, yes. And I was just like, dude, don't tell anybody. If you know me, you know that I'm terrible with surprises or secrets. Like,
okay.
But I like did such a good job at like not telling anybody. Like, our friends didn't even know.
Right.
It was like Ryan and Alex knew, and then we just started setting up, and people were like, what? and it ended up being one of my favorite sets that I've ever played.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy to think that we almost didn't play it, because that's the last show that we played.
Yeah. So, man, there's so many things there. Just, yeah, because I was gonna ask, like, was that something that was planned, like, in the lineup? But to hear that it was such like a spontaneous, like, hey, we're here and we're just jacked on, what this is doing for Kentucky hardcore ultimately, or Louisville hardcore, and Ryan and Alex being I'll just say it now in case they are listening. I would love to do like an LDB Fest podcast. They've been on my hit list as well. But you know, just for them to be so down, like, of course, like, let's do it, and just like to have it go off in such a way, and in the aspect of like, here's this pandemic coming down the pipe that no one knows about. To have that be like kind of the last show is kind of like bittersweet in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. It's like in a lot of ways, to me it felt like a celebration.
For
It's
sure.
like
Yeah.
one, we had just gotten home, so it's like we hadn't seen our friends in a really, really long time.
Mhm.
And two, it's like LDB is a lot more centered around the people that have been going to Knocked Loose shows since the beginning.
Sure.
So for us to play, it's always it's like it's weird when like our home supports us obviously, but our like close group of friends, it's weird when they come out to see us out of town and it's like a barricade show. You know what I mean? They're like, this is weird. You guys are like huge. And I'm
Right.
like, so being able to play LDB, we were just surrounded by friends.
Mhm.
It's like, if you look at the video, like the sides of the stage, it's just like everyone who's been there. And it was like, I got like emotional during the set, because like my adrenaline was just through the roof, and everywhere that I turned, it's just like someone that has had like had an impact on the trajectory of Knocked Loose,
Yeah.
and everybody just having an absolute blast. And I think that that's why it was like why that set was so special to me, because you're right, it was just in the moment us being like, I wish we were playing, we should play, I'll ask.
Mhm.
And then it was, of course, you know what I mean? So yeah, man, I don't know. It was awesome. I'm really, really glad that we got to be a part of it. And I'm glad that the video exists so that like during times like this, I'm able to like relive it.
Most definitely. Yeah. I think, you know, kind of going back to the first thing that we were talking about, just being proud of like your underdog scene and just like building that and putting it, whether it's being like the drummer in 7 bands, but like being the drummer in those 7 bands like keeps those 7 bands active and alive, or, you know, filming shows, or, you know, like I remember, I'm going to plug my homie Noah, who's from Louisville. He came out for Wild Rose 2019, and it was like he just watched some scope videos, and he was like, yeah, the lineup is sick, but I also wanted to come and see you and hang out with friends. And I think that's so cool. Like, you know, for me, there is no other path in my life where I would ever think about visiting like Tulsa, or not Tulsa, but just Oklahoma in general. But because I know like Aaron Johnson and Promcore are all there, and there's like tons of bands that I've met from the, you know, Oklahoma area, it's like, yeah, I want to go down to Oklahoma one of these years, and like just like I'm not there necessarily to like take in the sights or, you know, do these things. Like I just want to go to a show and hang out with my friends all under the same roof.
Definitely. And yeah, like Noah's a great example of just like traveling, like getting used to like making that trip to be a part of something, and to do the things that you like to do, because those opportunities don't always come through Louisville. I remember that, like, I feel like Noah started going to hardcore shows when we were already touring full time. So my first like interactions with him were outside of Louisville, because he would travel to see us all the time. And I was just like, I recognize him over and over again, and then I see him at home and I'm like, yo, what up? And it's like, yeah, he's awesome. So definitely shout out to him.
Yeah, Noah's a real one. I miss him a lot. On the topic of LDB, that set, like I was seeing, like in the hours or even days afterwards, I saw a lot of, you know, cell phone videos where people were like flipping off of like the PA speakers and all this, and it was crazy to see like people going off, but then to see like Sound and Fury, which is like one of those like top tier like hardcore fests have been around like for years and years and years, put out a tweet to be like, please don't like jump off the monitors for when we have that, like obviously didn't know about the pandemic, but like is it still like crazy to this day, like you guys are just writing this music that you think is nice and like people are just like destroying their bodies to your set?
Definitely. And I think that like over the years, like we've seen some crazy things happen during our sets, and it's always just like a lot of the times I think about like if the tables were turned, like if it was me.
Sure. Okay.
And I don't think that there's a band in the world that would make me jump off the top of a monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Like that jump is very high. and I might be just like too soft for it. But yeah, it's like crazy. Still, like even when that video got released the other day, I was just like, why are they doing that? Like they're gonna get so hurt. And
right.
Like I've gotten hurt playing shows. Like we've seen people get really hurt during shows, and like it's crazy. It's something that I'll never really get used to. It's always like, oh my God. Like sometimes I feel like you can see it in my reaction from the stage. There was actually a meme of it with the 197 video.
Oh, okay.
Of like, there's a frame of me like seeing somebody climb up the monitor, and my face is like you see that I'm like fully worried for this person
right.
mid-set.
Please.
I definitely appreciate it though. Like you said, we're just writing like music that we like, and the only consistent theme for our music, like when it comes to talking about what we're going to do differently, what we're going to try to expand on, how we're going to try to get better, the only thing that's been consistent is like being heavy and just like having breakdowns. So it's like over the years you kind of see like people respond really, really well to this. So like if we did it like this could be crazy live. Right. And then when you see it pay off, it's definitely like a really good feeling.
Definitely. And I feel like that's a great segue into another question that I wanted to ask. So like you guys are in the cycle now of like, it's like this album and this album, and not to say that you guys can't do like a little, single here or an EP or things like that. But for the most part, you guys are writing, an LP's worth of songs for each iteration. Are you guys trying to only go into that pocket of like, how are these songs going to hit live crazy? Because some of my personal favorite Knocked Loose songs are ones that I don't see you guys play, but, just like the musicianship of it just takes me in a little bit of a different place. So like when you guys are like writing songs, like, are you trying to think about like, definitely like this song's going to be the single, this is going to, be a good live hitter, but are there certain songs where you're like, I definitely want to, are you plugging in your computer?
Yeah.
I was like, what is he looking for? What's going on?
I'm glad that I noticed that before we got cut off again.
No, that's all good. For me, like Last Words, you guys did the music video for that, and that still is one of my like favorite tracks from you guys, just like how it's a little like, it's like a dark melodic, like heavy Knocked Loose song. So are there certain songs that you guys have done that you're like, I kind of wish that we could try this live, but I also know like it might not hit, like compared to like playing, any other huge track that you guys are known for?
I would say, well, first I would say that like the dark melodic ones are like typically my favorite during the writing process, like Last Words, Guided by the Moon, songs like that are the ones that like I get really excited for during the writing and recording process. And Last Words we played for a while live. I would say that like when it comes to writing, we all kind of in the back of our heads have an idea of what's next. So like when it came to laugh tracks, it was like like, okay, this is the debut. We kind of have to show that we're more than just like what our demo is.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it came to like A Different Shade of Blue, it was like, okay, now we have to, like, in my opinion at least, we have to write songs. It can't just be a breakdown. It can't just be like a couple riffs leading to a breakdown. I want to write real songs. And like I said, the breakdown is always like the consistent theme. And I'm glad that we never change things based off of what we think people will do live.
Sure.
Or like how the crowd will take it. But there are sometimes like conscious efforts into making a part maybe hit harder because we know what works live.
Sure.
But then when it comes to like creating our set list, that's typically built around what we know goes over well.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's been times when like we'll have like a pretty standard set where you can expect us to play like the songs that have always gone over great, and then we'll throw in some oddballs and see how they're taken. And there's some songs that just never ever caught on.
Sure.
And it's like and it's like we really like playing those songs. But what's going to make me like playing a song more is if it's exciting, like if the crowd is excited.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of people complain about songs that we don't play or songs that we don't play anymore, and it's like nobody cares. Like it might just be you know what I mean?
Right.
And like, and then on the other hand, it's exciting to like bring that back. Like
definitely.
We're still practicing and everything during this. And the other day, weirdly enough, I was like, we should relearn Last Words. Because we all enjoyed playing that song. And it never even like, that wasn't like people liked that song.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like a lull in the set. But when it came to A Different Shade of Blue, there were like faster, more exciting songs to kind of replace it. And it was like, okay, we're going to try to make Guided by the Moon the new Last Words. So like this will be the dark melodic part of the set,
right,
instead of that one. But yeah, like the song My Heroes, that's a perfect example of a song that just like nobody literally ever cared. And like people ask for it, and every now and then we let that get to us and we're like, yeah, we should play that.
Right.
And we'll put it in the set list for a tour, and it's like, no, this sucks.
Yeah, because like you're totally right. Like if you want to play a certain song, that is like 50% of it, but then the other 50% is like, how are people reacting to this song? And like,
yeah,
you know, some people can be so like, fuck you, I'm playing this song because it means a lot to me or whatever the reason is. But some people are just like, I need that end. Like that's a huge reason why a lot of, you know, I'm thinking back to when I had Sonny from Hey56 on the podcast. A lot of bands that he's reached out to do a live stream during this are like, I need the live, like, you know, energy to just like, not like play. It's not like everyone's like Wizard of Oz, like everyone's, you know, down like that. But like it is a huge aspect of this space that we're both in. So yeah,
definitely. And it's like, and the bigger that the tours got that we were like able to be a part of, the more that you kind of learn how to like navigate the crowd.
Sure.
So you kind of realize that like if you're doing a tour with a band like Beartooth, they might not respond the way that people at like Wild Rose would respond to me, like mosh calling or like saying like fuck it up, whatever. So it's like you don't change what the band is, you just learn how to talk to different people. And it's like at the Beartooth show I might say like, everybody put your hands up.
Right.
I would never do that at like Wild Rose or LDB.
Right. People would be like, huh? Like
But throughout that you kind of learn how like, okay, there's parts of the set where it's like this song might not be might not get a huge pop. It might be like what can we do to spice it up? And it's funny because the last words, it happened on accident, but we played like a festival in Europe, like one of those outdoor festivals with like Judas Priest or something crazy, but we're like over here on like a little side stage.
Yeah.
And there's that whole like bridge of last words where it's just like one guitar strumming, and I was like, I'm going to use this opportunity to try to hype up the crowd for the ending. And I told them to like open it up. And they took that as like, we're going to do a wall of death.
Oh,
So, yeah. So, and I was like, open it up. And they split it right down the middle. And I was like, no way. So like Isaac.
An accidental wall of death. That's...
Yeah. So Isaac counts down and it works perfectly. It's like insane.
Yeah.
And we're like freaking out. I feel like it was an actual conversation getting off the stage, like, whoa, do you see we had a wall of death? Like, so then it was like, it's like, oh, okay, so that song, people may not react, but now it can be the wall of death songs.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it was like that with other songs, like Blood Will Have Blood off of Laugh Tracks. It was like, that's the Circle Pit song.
Yeah.
It's like the fast one that's just no breaks until the last breakdown. Mm-hmm. And that one was kind of replaced by Denied by Fate off of A Different Shade of Blue. It's like, depending on the environment, obviously, but it's like, oh, we're doing this big metal thing. We're just going to make this the Circle Pit song, because not every song is going to be like a big sing-along moment like All My Friends. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of like learning how to navigate through that. And then there's some songs like My Heroes where it's just like, no, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. No, that's a huge insight, honestly, that I never even thought of. Like, you going and playing a show with Beartooth, because that's the example you use. Like, if you say everyone two-step, like most people might not know what two-stepping is, but if you go to another show, like, you can maybe be a little bit more like specific or meticulous, or say something super ignorant. If you said like the most ignorant mosh call at Beartooth show, there would be like some eyebrows like, like I think of I think Sanction, This Is Hardcore 2019, I think it is. I think their vocalist says something like cut everyone's fucking head off or something. Like, if that was said at a Beartooth show, there'd be some people probably turning around like, yeah, this probably isn't for me.
Exactly. And something that's really cool is like something that I love when it comes to like hardcore shows is when like a two-step hits and the entire room is doing it. Mm-hmm. It's like the coolest looking thing ever. But something that I've grown to love that's like in my mind now equally as cool is like when we're playing a show and I tell everybody to jump and they just listen.
Yeah.
And it's like, we played a show at in Webster Hall in New York City, and it's like the new Webster Hall. Mm-hmm. So we were on like the top floor, and it's the biggest New York show that we've ever played. And I told everybody to jump, and you could literally feel the floor moving because it's like you're on the third floor. It was so cool. Mm-hmm. It's like I said, it's just like a different kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think that just goes to show how long you guys have been, doing this, where you can really like adapt for, the type of show that you're playing. I'm sure like if you guys eventually were playing with like, Lamb of God or some of those, you wouldn't be like, everyone two-step, because it would be like 30 to 40-year-old dudes being like, no, I'm going to push pit. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. or even beyond that, like they're in the stands, like sitting down.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like that I think that if that day ever comes where we're fortunate enough to kind of break into metal, it's going to be a whole new challenge of like learning how to talk to that crowd and like navigate through that atmosphere. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Do you have any, this came to mind just now. Do you have any like, despite the crowd I'm playing in, I will never do this as a front person in a band?
There's like, I could probably go on forever about it, but it's never like, I don't know if it's like a predetermined hardline rule.
Sure.
But I would never do. I don't know. I'll never do like a selfie video with the crowd behind me. Like I see people doing that. I see like I'll never. I don't know. I just feel like just like normal things. You know what I mean? Like I like to think of the Knocked Loose as just like a normal band. Like I don't want to do anything that's like fucking weird or like super gimmicky. Like I like creating a vibe and like existing within that and then challenging ourselves to expand that. And I think that a lot of the ways that we act on stage reflects our personalities. I don't want to be a different person on stage than I am off.
For sure.
I mean, I am in the aspect of everybody always says like, you're so quiet and calm off stage versus on.
Right.
I think that's a given. But when it comes to like the way that I carry myself, like I don't want to be on stage like acting like a front man. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's almost like kind of a Dragon Ball Z kind of thing. Like people know you off stage, but then just like the fun nature of like playing a show just like brings you like changes your hair colors and gives you superpowers and you rock the fucking gig.
I think the coolest thing about like this world is how accessible it is.
For sure.
And it's like growing up and you go to shows on the floor, like you're right there. You know what I mean? And I remember when I first started getting into heavy music and I'm going to like the big metal shows and you're at a barricade and you're like, I'll wait in line for a signing or whatever. The only time that I ever did that as a kid, I remember I got to meet the Mitch Lucker from Suicide Silence. And I got like a picture with him, but that was like such a huge deal.
Yeah.
And then you transition into like hardcore shows and it's like they're on the floor. There's no barricade. They're chilling at the merch table. And it's like even though things got bigger for Knocked Loose, I still want to be accessible. If it's a barricade, I still want you to be able to reach out and grab me, and I want you to feel like you're a part of it.
Right.
Because for Knocked Loose, the crowd is a very big part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's go back just a little bit, talking about songs that are just like so far in the, the Knocked Loose lore that you're like, maybe we can just leave it there in its space. Tell me about, you guys have a song called SS that randomly came up on, like, I didn't know that existed until today. And then I was listening to the demo and then it like auto played to that. I was like, there's a song called SS. Can you break that down for me for the folks at home who were like, what are you talking about, Spencer?
That's like one of the first songs that we wrote like before the demo and everything. And it was like a very like, we had a really close friend at the time who had, I won't say his name, but he had lost his dad at a young age.
Okay.
And he kind of like opened up to me about what that was like. And that was just like a struggle that I couldn't relate to. But I saw how much like hardcore meant to him. So I was like, I'm going to write this song for him. And it's basically like, kind of like if I was speaking from his point of view. And it's called SS because of the Monte Carlo, and it's like the car that his dad left him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it was kind of just like a thing for him. And when I showed it to him before it came out, and I was like, you don't have like an outlet, like you're not in a band. So like, I want this to be your outlet. Like I want you to sing this song and have this moment. And so it was just like a random single that we wrote for that specific situation. And then a local record label called Little Heart Records was putting together like a comp.
Yeah.
And we were working on the demo. So we were like, these songs are like special for the demo. So we're like, let's just throw them that song. And like, obviously at the time, didn't think that things would be where they are, but it's crazy to see how long that song has like existed. Like every now and then people will bring it up, and I'm like, that's such a different version of this band that I like can't even, that it's like even like weird to think about. But it was just like a very small moment in time that we wanted to document for a close friend.
Yeah, like that's so interesting because like again, it was just like being on the outside without any context. It was like, here's this random Knocked Loose song that is of the pop culture days, but you know, is very very short. I think it's only just over like a minute in length, or somewhere in that. But you know, to have a huge meaning behind all of that is really really interesting to hear.
Well, when we started, I think that you could tell in that song that it was still during a time period where we really didn't know what we wanted to do.
Sure. Yeah.
And when we started, I say that the band started in 2013 because that's when we played our first show.
Okay.
But we started jamming, like me, Isaac, and Kevin started jamming like long before that. And it was like, we went through so many different sounds where it was like, we're just going to sound like that, like what was popular in hardcore at that time, like Backtrack, Trapped Under Ice, Naysayer, like all those bands. It's like, we're going to sound like that. And there's like a whole Knocked Loose demo that just sounds like that. And then it would be like, oh, we're going to scratch that and we're going to do something different. And then it was like, we're going to do like Have Heart. We're going to do like the sad hardcore and melodic, and like there's like songs that exist that sound like that, and not out anywhere, but just like on Isaac's computer somewhere.
Yeah, it's on a Dropbox.
Yeah, and it's like it was a lot of just jamming, and we would have so many songs, and then we would scratch it and start over. And then it was like when like Harm's Way was like popular. I mean, not that they're not anymore, but like when Isolation came out, it was like, we're going to do like the low, heavy, like Ringworm, Harm's Way thing. Like, but yeah, and it just kept changing until finally it was like, let's book a show, because when we book a show, we'll know that like what we are, like we have until then to be what we're going to be.
Yeah, to get the shit in line. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because like no songs that we even played at our very first show ever even became like we're online, because we still kept changing.
Yeah.
And then it was like, we all just like being heavy. So it's like, let's just stop trying to be something else and just be heavy, whether that's grabbing influences from several different things and like let's just be heavy. We just want to see people mosh.
Yeah, no, I remember when Isaac came on, he told me, is like, there's like these different versions of Knocked Loose from the early days that are just on my computer, and like I don't know if we would ever get the pleasure if like not to be like it needs to be on Spotify, but if there was like a specific thing where it's like, okay, we're all going to be in this private room and listen to this, and no one gets to take anything home, everyone leaves their phones at the door, because you know there's going to be some you guys wrote these songs.
Yeah, it's I remember recently, like throughout quarantine, I like was like cleaning out my computer, and I was like going through old emails, and in my old email address, I found songs that Isaac and me were sending back and forth to each other, like early Knocked Loose songs.
Cool.
Before we even had the name Knocked Loose. And I was like, this is so bad. Like, it's just like so bad. And I don't regret anything that Knocked Loose has. If I'm not the same person that I was even when pop culture came out, like I've changed, and I think that that's important to accept and not feel like I have to write the same stuff as I was then. Like I've always tried to write about what's going on for me at that time.
Mm.
And if anything, it gives me an opportunity to look back and be like, wow, I was very different.
Yeah.
But like, so I don't regret anything that we've written, but listening to like the early stuff, I'm like, this is unlistenable. Like, it's so cringy. Like, nobody can hear this ever.
Ever. No, I do think that's cool because, naturally, hardcore lyrics overall are very personal, and a lot of people can find meaning, whether it's like a direct correlation or they can take something and put it in their own, this is what I'm pulling from it. But yeah, I feel like a lot of Knock Loose material on the lyrical side is very personal to you, and you write kind of without trying to filter a lot of it, and showcasing talking, like it's crazy to hear, like songs off of pop culture where you're like talking about like, I'm not straight edge, I just want to be sober, and then now you are straight edge, and it's not like this weird thing of like, oh, we can't play that song anymore because I said this. Like, it's just like the lyrics of Knock Loose is in some cases a form of your life in a sense.
Yeah. That's a perfect example. Like, I'm obviously not the same person, and like, that's a song that was like, that gets like misconstrued a lot, like, where people don't necessarily understand what I was talking about. Like, a lot of people, through conversations that I've had, of like taking it as me like mocking straight edge. Like, I do this, but I don't want to be that, and that's not what I mean at all. It just means that like, I was very much in a place where I had my qualms with like drug abuse and alcohol abuse, same feelings that I have now, but I at the time had vices that were stopping me from claiming straight edge. So it was about like the problems that I personally had with these things, but not being all the way there.
Yeah.
So like, obviously I've changed throughout time. I've gotten rid of those vices, and I decided to claim. But even then, like, I'm still not like extremely open about it. I've been asked to like do guest vocals for a straight edge band about a straight edge song, and I was like, no, I don't really want to be like a poster boy for it, because
Sure.
It was just for me. And being on record saying I'm not, and now being on record saying I am, I'm like uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
So I was just like, no, like, I'm not really the one. Like, get Isaac. Like, Isaac's been straight edge his whole life. Like,
Sure. Yeah. It is
but-
interesting. It is interesting though. Just like I drew some influence from that in the sense of like, growing up, like I just never really gravitated towards that, and then people just over time didn't see, beers in my hand, so they're like, oh, you're straight edge, and it was easier for me to say that I was, versus trying to explain the why behind that. And then over time, like it's funny, like I'm 28 years old now, and I do drink, but it's like it's to the degree that people still at 28 years old think I'm straight edge because I'm not like doing 4, 5, 6 beers. I'm like, no, I'm driving home from this show. Like, I'm like a responsible person. Like, I'm not going to drink tonight or whatever it is. So
I will be 28 this year as well. And I think that like I wrote that song way before, like lyrically way before that record was even out.
Yeah.
And I think that like in that time period of like 17 to 27, like that's a
huge gap of time.
huge gap, but also like years where your life is supposed to change dramatically. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like, so it just and even like, so at the time, like I had smoked cigarettes and I had already like experimented with drugs and alcohol and gotten that out of my system. I knew that that's not something that I wanted to do. I didn't like who I was when I did them, so I had stopped. And it was like, that's speaking like, I don't like those things and I don't do those things, but I smoke cigarettes and I'm addicted to them. So I'm not going to claim straight edge because I'm not.
Sure.
So then it was like, I finally quit smoking cigarettes and I did. But even like touring and like seeing the world, like I had never really traveled before Knocked Loose. So like seeing all these new places and all these new things, it like made me want to be even further from that lifestyle. Like,
sure.
Just from like the things that you're exposed to from like being on the road and being at like a concert every night.
Yeah. Like, the rock show, or like there are aspects of, even hardcore shows that are like, there's definitely like underage drinking, even if it's an all ages show and some of those things. But yeah, like that's a rabbit hole that we will choose not to go down. We're almost at the 2 hour mark, so we should probably start to wrap it up anyways, Bryan. The last section, this has been a great chat with you. I've
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. The last question that I ask all the guests to kind of finish off the episode is a favorite mosh story to share. So that could be anything that comes to your mind, something that happened at a Knocked Loose show, something that happened at a show you were just attending, something LDB Fest related, whatever's the first thing to your mind.
Gosh, that's so hard.
You could do two, one for each bev that you checked on the pod.
Okay. I gotta think on it for a second.
I know when I ask this question, it's like the meme with all like the equations just going.
Yeah, like exactly. Exactly. It's like there's so many. I don't know if I want to go like.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people do like the really scary, like someone almost died, or like the like I'll tease this upcoming episode. I had someone from Scowl come on the podcast, and they were telling me how Sammy from Drain was covering someone with ice cream. And now this is very unexpected. So like I've had the yin and yang of both of those.
Yeah. Man, I will say, one that I'll give, because this is fresh in my memory. I was just telling this story the other day, because of all the new God's Hate songs.
Oh, okay,
I was saying that Louisville has never really been like a super violent place when it comes to moshing. We have like there's sets that get rowdier than others, but for the most part, it was never one of those places. It was like when I first started touring and I went to the Northeast for the first time, I was like, holy fuck, these people are killing each other. Like,
sure.
But every now and then there's a set or a random band that's just like insane in Louisville. So God's Hate and Terror played Spinelli's, which for people that don't know is like a 90 cap legally a 90 cap pizza place that we would do hardcore shows out of. So first of all, Terror coming to Louisville, big deal. Terror playing at Spinelli's, huge deal. We were like, this is going to be like a
legendary night.
Yeah. So even the show. Fun story. My youngest brother Trey, that was the show that I was like, Trey, I know you don't care about hardcore and you never go to shows with me in Dallas, but I really want you to come to this show. Because,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, he had been to see Knocked Loose, but it just never really clicked for him.
Yeah.
I was like, I want you to come to this show because even if you walk away not liking it, it's going to be crazy to watch.
Right.
So just come to the show. I'll put you somewhere safe. You can just observe. So he came and sat on a jukebox behind the drums. So he had like a bird's eye view of everything.
Right.
God's Hate plays, never played Louisville. And right before their set, the singer says, cut the lights. And it was like one of the most violent shows in Louisville that I've probably personally seen. It was insane. And it's such a small room.
It's
like
tiny. So I can't even imagine that lights off and there's fist swing.
Yeah. Lights off.
Terrifying.
And it's like, it's long and it's thin. So it's like if you're moshing in the front where like in my experience, the hardest moshers are, it's like you can't move at all without getting smoked. Like you're just going into it knowing I'm going to get fucked up.
It's the splash zone at like,
yeah, exactly. So dude, it was crazy. I'm like standing on a stool next to Trey, who's on the jukebox, and I'm just watching everybody get smoked. Like nobody was safe. But it was like excessive. Like it was like more than just moshing, and like there was no fights. Everybody was there to do this, so it was fine. But it was like people getting uppercutted, like people, like like there was like somebody up against the wall like this, and somebody just like coming up under him, like
my gosh.
And it was awesome. It was sick. And so this gets brought up a lot because Knocked Loose is like really heavy, and we love like the crazy shows. And it's like I love that kind of pit when everybody's on the same page. I believe that there's like a time and place for it, and I think that some shows it's like, don't do that. This isn't that kind of show. You know what I mean? Like, that was a huge learning experience for us when we played Warped Tour, because I was like, dude, you're at fucking Warped Tour. Like, stop.
Sure.
Just read the room. With that being said, the shows that you play where everybody's down, everybody knows going into it it's going to be violent, and it's just mayhem. It's so fucking cool. And that was one of the craziest ones. I want to give a Knocked Loose story now because I feel like that's only appropriate.
Right. End off, bookend the podcast with Knocked Loose content versus Knocked Loose and then God's hate mosh.
I'll give a funny Knocked Loose story that ends with us not even playing.
Okay.
This was early on. We actually took my brother Dallas on tour to do merch because it was over the summer. He was like 15 years old. I was like, Mom, can Dallas come? And they were like, yeah, whatever. So
yeah, just take him, whatever.
Like I had mentioned before, this is what drew me to this story. I was talking about the Northeast and people killing each other. So it's funny because friends that we made from like the Massachusetts area still to this day apologize. But
for this show. Okay.
So we played Rhode Island.
Okay.
And a band from Massachusetts played. They covered Hatebreed. Well, they started their set off covering Slipknot. They played their set, ended it by covering Hatebreed, Smash Your Enemies.
Okay.
And it was a war zone. Like people were just going fucking nuts. So their set's done, and we're like walking up gear in hand, like about to play. And I guess one of the security guards saw something during the set that he didn't like, and he waited until the set was done to try to kick someone out.
Oh, okay.
And in the blink of an eye, the biggest fight that I've ever seen breaks out. And it's like 60 people, like, and we're just standing there with our gear. Like I had never seen anything like it. It looked like a riot, and we're just standing on stage like
we haven't started playing yet.
And like my brother, who's like 15, like I don't even think he had seen like a fist fight at this point in his life. I'm like holding him behind me, and he's like looking over, like just like scared. I'm like, these people are fucking insane. And then the fight gets broken up. And then we start setting up. The fight starts again. And ultimately the show got shut down and we didn't get to play. But it's like we were like loading our van and just everybody coming up to us like, yo, sorry. Like, we feel really, really bad that you don't get to play. And, but like, I'll never forget that. It was like just in the blink of an eye, a riot. And we're all just sitting there like, we haven't even played yet. And the show would have been so cool. Like I said, there was like 60 people there, which was like unheard of at the time.
Sure.
And it was our first time in Rhode Island, which is like such a beautiful city. We had such a good day, and we're like, let's go play this badass show. And then it got shut down. And we still like, we'll have people like, yo, I was at that Rhode Island show that got shut down. Like, really sorry about that. Like, still to this day.
They're like, okay.
It's just like, yeah, it's just really funny. And it's still like a fact. Well, at least in my personal opinion, like I've played a lot of places now. Mm-hmm. The Northeast Massachusetts specifically is like the hardest moshers that I've personally seen.
Yeah. No, that's too funny. It's just like, okay, well, let's take the gear back to the van, I guess, and go to the next show.
I remember passing Kevin, our bass player, walking into the venue. I'm walking out, and he's got his bass and his pedal board, and I was just like, this show is not happening. And he's like, why? And then the fight's like spilling out of the building behind me, and he's like, oh,
all right, I'll follow you.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Well, Bryan, this has been a super fun, super informative, and just badass conversation. I really appreciate you giving me almost 2 hours of your time. I had so many questions, and we went on so many great tangents. This is your time. If there's anything you want to plug, anything that you want to send people off with, the floor is yours before we officially end the show.
I will say that there's nothing that I can really talk about, but Knocked Loose is working. We are taking advantage of this downtime and staying busy, and because that's all we really know how to do. We're very much in the position to where if I woke up to a text in the morning that said I can go on tour tomorrow, we've got everything ready. So whenever we can come back, we will be coming back like we never left. So very excited to get back out there, and whenever that may be. But in the meantime, just like try not to let everything that's going on get the best of you, because I know that like it's really hard for everybody right now. And I haven't always had like the easiest time navigating through this. I know that I'm not the only one. So I know a lot of people are picking up hobbies, whatever. Find what you can do to keep you busy until you can get back out there.
Yeah, I really like that. I love the analogy that Knocked Loose is just going to be this faucet that we can just turn all the way and just it comes out pouring. So that's very cool to hear. Bryan, thank you so much again for coming on the show and just chatting with me. I hope we can do it again soon sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.